Welcome to The Art of Growth. Today is the Type 3 panel talking about relationships. Before we jump into this panel, you can go to theartofgrowth.org to take a free Enneagram test or instincts test. And that's also the place to reach out to us if you're interested in having us work with your organization or even you as an individual. That's also the place to sign up for the newsletter to make sure you don't miss anything, like our upcoming certification courses or group coachings or things like that. So let's go ahead and jump in with the Type 3 panel talking about relationships.
Uncharacteristic to Type 3s who don't appear to be emotional types, they still do function primarily through the heart center, but not aware oftentimes of their own heart. They still function from that center as all heart types do, which is very much about how the world and them interact. There's an attention that goes to what is happening in this moment between me and these other people? Am I being seen? How do they see me? That's a big heart triad question. How am I being seen in this moment? Am I getting the approval, the feedback that I'm looking for? That's a constant focus of attention for heart types. They primarily deal with, I think, the emotion, the core emotion for heart types is sadness or shame or grief. If they slow down, that's typically what they feel. That's a bit about the heart types.
Yeah. And like we said, we didn't do coaching during the sessions because we really wanted the type to speak for themselves. We wanted their energy really to dominate the room, which meant like pulling ours back and really asking questions, staying curious in this space. Because if you want to be in good relationships, start with the place of curiosity. Start with the place of listening, of wanting to really receive and hear from these people. So we made that the emphasis of our time together. And we will provide some coaching tips on the back end of this episode after the panels are over. But right now, we're going to go ahead and get into the time with the panels. But real quick, before we do that, we do want to let you know we have a website now, theartofgrowth.org. If you'd like to get in contact with us or get on our email list so that we can provide some of the things we're going to be doing, extra either meditations or thoughts or an online class later this year, please go over there and do that. So right now we will get to the Type 3 panel talking about relationships.
All right, well, welcome to the 3 panel. I'm excited to be here with Christina, Rob, Joanna, and Paul. So I'd love to hear a little bit about you guys. What do you do? Tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do.
All right, I'll go first. So I'm Christina. I am a pastor in Quincy, Massachusetts. We have 4 kids. We've been married 21 years, I think. We got married in 1998. So yeah, that's 21, right? And we live just south of where I work, so in Weymouth, Massachusetts, which is great. We moved there a couple years ago and realized just yesterday that 9 years ago we bought our first home, which feels crazy because sometimes it feels like life goes very slowly. And then you realize, like, wow, a lot has happened in just 9 years. So that's us.
My name is Rob Hyland. Been married for 19 years to a wonderful lady, and we have one son who's 15. And for work, I do computer science research and development with an emphasis on artificial intelligence. And I've been doing that for 24 years or so. Originally from Illinois and transplant to Boston all those years ago.
My name is Joanna Stanberry. I have 3 kids, 12, 4, and 2. I am married to Andy, who is, we've been married for 9 years. And I'm from New York City. I live in Manhattan in East Harlem. And I am homeschooling my little kids. But for 10 years before that, I was in a lot of various things, including a lot of marketing and nonprofit work. And I have a background in leadership research.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
I'm Paul. I am a dad of Izzy, who's off at college on the West Coast. I recently moved to Somerville from the suburbs out in Natick, and I love, love, love Somerville. I'm in the midst of starting a food business, connecting people together. It's an innovation pressing the limits of some of the regulations. I've been doing it about 6 months or so, and feeling hopeful some days and not so hopeful other days.
Thank you so much. I'm going to give a quick descriptor of the type 3. Type 3s are described in the literature as being performers, which means that they are achievers who focus on goals, success, or at least the appearance of success, as a way to feel worthwhile or loved in this world. I'd love to hear from each of you to sort of put your own words to that, maybe, and describe what that looks like to you, what that feels like to you.
I'll start. I'm Christina again. I was working on this a little bit last night, and I was running by some of my answers with my husband and a friend of mine on Marco Polo. I don't know if it's like an app you can do video talking. And the first thing that I put at the top of my list was organized. And both my friend and my husband were 7s, and they were like, "That's not the first thing you put on a list. That'll make you sound horrible." And they were like, "You're positive, you're fun, you're joyful, you're hopeful." I was like, those things are true. And so I moved organized down. And then on the way over here again, I was like, but organization, man, I will fix your life. Like, I will help you find a successful path and the way that you should go. So, yes, I think hopeful and joy-filled is definitely true, but organization is up there. Finding creative solutions is up there as well.
So for me, I could totally relate to some of that. Not the organization piece. I'm totally disorganized. But the idea of being creative and innovative and needing to kind of press up against the limits of things. I was telling a story the other day of my dad invited me to watch him play softball when I was a kid. I was like, 8 years old. And he said, "All right, sit right here and watch me." So I did, and I watched for a while. But then I got up and I wandered down. There was a creek down below. So I wandered down to the creek. He comes running down. "Hey, where'd you go?" I said, "Oh, I'm just playing, just following what's next." And he said, "All right, but don't cross the creek. Whatever you do not cross the creek." And he goes up and he comes back down a little while later, and there I was on the other side of the creek, and I just following, what's in front of me to do. Innovation, creativity, on the edge, beyond the limits. And I'm doing it right now with this food thing that I'm working on.
Yeah, I think for me, the problem solving is pretty instinctive. It's always going on in the back of my mind. It's always happening. I'm not even aware the level of problem solving that I'm always doing. But I think I come at my number a little bit differently, possibly because of my ADHD background. And so I think I experienced, probably in my early 20s, I experienced failure in a way that made me kind of second guess a lot of my creativity or my growth path. And so it's always I've felt a little more hesitant on that road and not quite as like, yeah, go at it. Yeah, I can fix this. Sometimes I have to pull back a little. It's like, well, can I? Or is this going to be welcome? But yeah, I definitely resonate with the high energy aspect of it. And even though I have ADD, I think that I am super organized in the sense that I always know where everything is. Mm-hmm. And I'm always categorizing. I'm always putting things, ideas, or, and I think this is part of that, like scanning the environment thing, even people in boxes, right? I'm always just categorizing. Yeah, even though it does, so it may not look that way, but that's definitely always going on in the background.
Nice. No wonder you can get your head around the Enneagram. I call it the M&Mogram. So I'm struggling to really understand all the types and so forth. They're not sticking in my head. But when I read the 3 type, I walked through it with Joel and I was like, maybe I'm here, and so forth. But words that popped out to me are adaptable, driven, excelling, image conscious, not so much. But just to get on the creativity part, that's absolutely just built into me. I think the one thing that's just been in me and will always be in me is being inventive. Grew up on a farm, so I made this pulley system, made a zip line thing, and made all these cadverns out of the hay bales and stuff, and it just never stops, right? There's a whole bunch of pieces sitting, a bunch of car parts or whatever. I'm like, that can be a robot. That can definitely be a robot. So yeah, and as far as like an interesting thing, though I'm driven, I would probably say I don't know if this gets to just a little intro or whatever. Probably my biggest stumbling block is actually sort of a low self-esteem in a weird way. Yeah, a bruised self-esteem. So I think I have a big heart, but you get hurt and so forth. It just keeps coming back to that, like even from a kid and stuff. Like there was a principal walking through grade school and stuff, and I would just go to the side of the hall, and they're like, "What's up with that kid?" And I saw it's an interesting thing that's come. So it's that totally driven, but I kind of have this other thing that keeps me back, and I'm always working on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that part for me is that trying to read the room. And so if I'm in any situation where I don't know the rules, I get really anxious until I can figure out the rules. And so I do hold back. And then once I've figured out what the rules of play are,
then you thrive.
I engage.
Cool.
Yeah. I looked for a new house when we moved to North Carolina for a year and a half before I was ready to all right, I understand the landscape. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And I've heard that from a number of other type 3s. It seems to be common that there's, until I know the rules of the game, I don't want to engage, That goes towards the whole thing of knowing how to succeed in an environment and bringing your best to that. So, yeah. Really cool.
Well, it's different for me. I just figured out I'm a sort of run forward, test, experiment, and see what it is and so forth. The rules it's good to know. It's sort of optional. Read the manual if you have to and stuff. But it's just a different experience.
Yeah. And so what we would say about that is almost all 3s would say the same thing about that too. They'll push themselves to an edge, and rules sometimes are not the focus of attention. It's really about getting to the goal, right? Getting across the goal line. That's the way they would see it. Yeah. But understanding what are the rules to being successful, how do I succeed in this environment, that tends to be the focus of attention for 3s, or at least achieving and that kind of.
I do think with all 3 aggressive type numbers that the way that women and men show up in those numbers are different. Maybe more so, except for maybe 2 men, maybe more so than any other number because of the way women are perceived in society. So I think that women 3s, 7s, and 8s do a little bit more reading of the room, a little bit more pulling back with their high energy than any of the other types do. So that might also be a gender distinction.
Oh, it's so true. Being a white male, I can say, I'm the least organized guy and so forth. And that, like, if a female says that, it's like, I don't know if she's the leader there, if she has that flaw.
So you had started, Christina, with saying that some of the things you bring to relationships are things like hope and positivity. So I'd love to hear more about that. Like those are things that 3s do tend to bring to relationships, is the optimistic, upbeat, we can do this.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So say more about that, and then I'd like to hear from the rest of you as to what you think you bring to relationships.
I mean, just yesterday I was talking with a friend who's in the middle of a job search, and job searches have so many twists and turns. Oh, my goodness. And she'll call. She's really upset. And I'm always so unlike I have friends, right, that can really get into the emotion and sit in the emotion with people. And I really admire their ability to like get a person to the brink of tears, right? But I am much more likely to crack jokes and to start looking for what could be good. Well, you don't know if you really want that job, but you never know who you're going to meet in that job and how that might be a stepping stone to the next thing. Like, you just don't know what's behind that door. This could be the best thing ever, even though you have these druthers. And so that is very commonplace for me. And every now and again, I'll find myself being like, don't make the jokes. It's very hard to not do that. So
that's great.
So that is definitely there as one of those things.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, definitely. Boy, that's hits me as well. So yeah, positivity, hope, that optimism, definitely a spark of fun, playfulness, lightheartedness was something that I'd written down. And I definitely, when we get to what you need from a relationship, it was, you got to let me crack some jokes and do some change of topics and so forth. I also really like to help. It is hard for me to say no if something needs some doing and it's important. really hard. And my wife says, I'll just jump in and help someone, even though it's like stupid and dangerous or whatever. It's like, oh, you need to go from here to there. Just jump in my car and we'll go. She's like, you didn't think about that? Will you please turn your cell phone? But it's just helping. It's like I can help. So I'm up for adventure, exploring ideas. That's a core part that we talked about, and the creative problem solving. And interesting things you're talking about for the positivity, I do kind of have a bimodal mode. So I'm the positive, but I know that I bias towards optimism. So I'm running really hard projects and so forth. I have this other mode I go into that it's all disaster. And yes, we achieved this awesome hill, but we got this and this and this and this. And I realized that when my boss, it's like there's like one miracle result after another miracle result, and I was still saying, but we have this and that. So it's kind of a self-learned pull back to know that I'm going to lean probably too far, just wish the outcome that I wanted was the outcome that I wanted. So I have to kind of test myself and have overcompensated with that.
Mm-hmm.
I find that really interesting because that's the place that I'm in. When I said earlier, some days I'm hopeful, some days I'm not.
Oh, yeah.
Is this kind of learned thing of, I'm looking to, press the edges of the, regulatory system in Massachusetts. I even want to change the state laws once we press up against the regulatory thing. Yeah. And it feels really exciting, and it feels like we could totally do this. It happened in California. We could do this. And then there's other days where I'm like, what the hell am I thinking?
You silly boy.
Yeah, exactly. Like all of those memories of those times in which I was optimistic and it didn't work out. I think, that really resonated with me when you said that.
Mm.
I think I could totally relate to the encourager as well. I think most of my friends see me as an encourager. Although I am maybe not quite so lighthearted. I find myself feeling frustrated inside when someone says, but. I'm like, let it go, man. Just, come on into the water's fine. So
I thought that was really neat, the way that you were talking about reflecting on past ways that things didn't necessarily work out, because I do think that that's tempered me a lot, is when I can step into that reflecting, because that doesn't come naturally to me at all. I'm usually, like you say, pushing forward to new things, but it does temper your forward thinking when you can remember what didn't work out so well in the past. This question really made me push a little, because I think friendship is an area that I haven't always had a great relationship with, and have had to do some reflecting to be a better friend. I'm so task focused, and I'm so focused on what I'm getting done and ideas and the way those are all fitting together. I cannot relate and do tasks at the same time. I can't hold both those thoughts in my head. And I get so much more of a thrill from the tasks that the relating gets pushed to the wayside a lot. But I also think, Christina, I liked what you said, because I think I've taken for granted a lot of the ways that I do show up as being good. So I do show up as optimistic. I do show up as encouraging. I reached out to some friends for this, and one of them said, yeah, at your best, you really have helped me succeed and achieve and call me out of my smallness in a way that nobody else has. And that really meant a lot to me, because I don't know that I've really seen that. But at the same time, what I've pressed into is realizing the best I have to bring to relationships, and this is something that the Enneagram's really been teaching me, is when I can press into my feelings and touch my heart and show up in that authenticity. And I think it's helped me. I mean, we'll get into this, but it's helped me that the people I'm connecting the most with are 5, 6s, and 8, right? So I'm connecting to people who really have a nose for inauthenticity and can smell that out. And so I am rewarded in those relationships when I do connect to my heart and show up in an authentic way. And so I think that what I bring to relationships now versus maybe what I thought I brought in the past is the ability to let down my armor sometimes and to connect with people.
Well said.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. My daughter talked to a lot of our mutual friends, and for my birthday, she gave me a book that had all the words of all my friends and what they'd said about me. And I was surprised at the number of people that said like loyal, and because I actually have. I think about relationships and this idea of like relating, like when you were saying relating to people versus ideas, I'm like, I don't even know what that means, relating. It's all about ideas. What do you mean?
Yeah. I did realize on the way over here, if you are in a relationship with me, you have worked hard for it. Like, because I am very present to you in the moment. And then when you're not there, I'm busy doing other things. And so somehow you've had to come back again and again and show me that like you're going to be there and that we're in this. Like it almost feels like you have to do fireworks in some kind of a way before I realize, oh yeah, like friends, like relationship. So
I relate with
poor
that.
people.
Spot on.
I wrote down the one thing that my friends need to relate to me is patience.
Yeah.
Stick-to-itness.
Yes.
Christine, that really hit home too, what you said, that I'm right there with you and I'm there, we're good, but then boop, I'm off doing something else. And I definitely get lost into the world of ideas and then doing the ideas and so forth. Though, I mean, one of the key things that is kind of weird too for being so thinker, so heady, and also task-oriented is I do need that affirmation, right? I need to feel valued. I need to feel like I'm actually doing something important and it actually mattered and made an impact. So what does that look like from people? You know, I go to the love languages and so forth. So the words of affirmation just, oh my gosh, that makes so much difference. I was talking about this hard project I was doing and was really into it. It was just for getting through this thing that's never been done before, right? And then my boss sent I don't know, probably a 5-word email. Oh, that was awesome, Rob. I'm so impressed. I was floating 9 feet for at least a week, right? And I don't know why those 9 words should have that much power over, that, but it did. And then I realized, oh yeah, I'm buttered that way. Or that's where my bread is buttered in a weird. And it's free, right? He could have gave me a raise, a bonus, or anything, but that had a disproportionate amount. So anyway, I guess I need that.
Yeah.
And then reference this before is that you got to let me play too. You really got to let me, play around and have some fun.
Mm.
Yeah. I have said affirmation's definitely on my list. That can go a very long way. I can go a long time. And you don't have to tell me you think I'm the best, right. I realized. Just that you see potential, that someday all that hard work could end up somewhere. And sometimes I'll chase that with certain people. Like, I really want to know that you think that, which is, it's a horrible process to get into. But it's a really big deal. And then I think the other thing that feels like a really, really big deal to me is honesty. So they talk about the 3's core sin being deception. And it plays out in a funny way for me. And that honesty is very important to me. And it helps me make good plans. It helps me stay successful, if you will. So if you say you're going to do something, if you say you're going to be there at a certain time, the whole schedule, everything that I'm doing in that day revolves around this reality that that's what's going to happen. And if you can't, I need you to tell me as soon as you know, because I'm happy to make a new creative plan. But if I have to do it right there on the fly, now I feel like it's dishonest. It's dishonest of me. Now I have to put on a show to make it look like everything's okay. And we are not friends.
You're not coming to my birthday party again.
But then I'll be very nice to them, right? I'll be very understanding to their face, but internally I'll be very, very hurt.
You're dead to me.
Yeah. Yes. I have said to people before, you lie to me, you die to me. Which is, you don't expect those words from pastors, right? But it's number one, dude, just don't lie. Just keep it honest. So honest, dependability, affirmation are top things.
Yeah. That's my...
But what I loved about what you said, Christina, I said, but is so negative. And, yes, and. That's the rule of improvisation, right? Yes, and.
Yes.
Yes, and I think what you're touching on, especially with affirmation and with the honesty, is that I think 3s need safety before they can connect and go deep. And so for us, affirmation establishes that safety because we need that encouragement to know it's going to be safe to go deeper. And the honesty is a big part of that because if someone's dishonest with you, you don't feel safe to go deeper. And there's no way, if you have such a hard time connecting, if I have such a hard time connecting with my heart, that I'm going to be able to access that and connect with you in a deeper way if there isn't this safety there already. And I loved what you said when you said, oh, you're still there? In terms of finding finding friends, right? Oh, you're still showing up. You're still texting me. Like, you want to be with me. Oh, we're friends. And I think that has always happened when people are patient, when they do affirm and encourage me. Definitely there's this basis of integrity, meaning they do what they say they're going to do. And that establishes a place where I can go deeper. But I think what I've learned that I love this question because I thought, well, what I want from relationships and what I need from relationships are actually different. Because what I want, first and foremost, is I want you to tell me I'm great. I want you to tell me I'm wonderful. I want you to see all my hard work. I really want you to see what I've put in. And I want you to dream about the future with me. I want you to be future focused with me. For my friends who are a little more past focused, I feel like I've had to develop patience with their past orientation. I'm like, no, this is slowing me down. Can't we just press into the future? But what I need from relationships is people who smell the inauthenticity. I need people who are going to say, like, is that the real Joanna? Because I'll be here and I'll wait, but I want the real one. I find that the people who, especially, I would say I have all these sixes in my life, and they just can smell that a mile away. They have this discernment for your BS. And so and my daughter, my 12-year-old, recently identified as a 6. And I've always realized that she can smell kind of my BS. And so connecting that with her being a 6, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. I really have to be real with you, and I have to give you my honesty, which from a parenting perspective is really hard because I think especially as a 3, when you're always putting up these walls and these faces and what does it look like to succeed in this arena or this arena? In parenting, usually, especially coming from a Christian background, a church background, what it looks like to succeed as a parent is looking strong and assertive and like you've got your children under control and like they are obedient and they are doing the right thing at the right time. And so that can really hit with her softness sometimes because I'm like, no, this is what, you need to do. And what I need from her is her to be present with me. And so that requires me, to take down some of that armor and be willing to be real with her.
Yeah, getting called on, for me, it's drinking my own Kool-Aid. So, like when I'm marketing something, it's like, all right, but what's real in that? I have one friend who always says, who doesn't always say, but who reacts very strongly to what he calls it overselling.
Nice.
No, it doesn't feel very nice. Honestly, it feels really hard.
Oh.
But I'm totally relating to everything that I feel like, these are my people. The words of affirmation, radical honesty. I want people to accept my choices, my vision of the future, how that looks. That's really what I want. But I appreciated what you said around really needing people to, remind me that I'm tempted to drink my own Kool-Aid. But it feels hard, honestly. I don't really. I'm not as healthy as you are in your 3-ness. I don't think because I don't receive it so well as
it's harsh in my mellow.
Yeah,
or my non-mellow.
Yeah.
Literally this week, just so you don't actually think I receive it that well, I was having a text conversation with one of my best friends who's a 6, and it was a conversation where I said, I metaphorically feel like I'm having my hand slapped right now. And I can think back to some real wounds I have as a child from ways I was criticized publicly, and that just cut straight to my heart. And that might have been key in kind of my forming as a 3, right? So we have all these, we self-criticize so that nobody else will criticize us. We're always explaining all of our behaviors so that nobody else is going to call it out. And so when she did that, I said the only reason, and I just kept wanting to put down the phone. I just kept being like, I'm just going to ignore the rest of this conversation and pretend like I didn't see any of these messages, but it was all subconscious, right? So I'm just literally putting down the phone because I'm not dealing with any of the feelings that are coming up. And I picked the phone back up and I said, the only reason I'm sticking with this conversation is that you are a safe person for me and you have established a relationship of trust with me. And I know you love me. And so I'm going to keep going with this conversation. But one of the things I realized is I can do that in text. I can do that. I can stick with those hard conversations. I can stop and pause and be aware of what's coming up for me in text, but in person, I just automatically go into that performer and the defensive one. And I can't do that connection because those feelings start to come up and it's like, down, go back. But yeah, when I can slow down that process, when I can just slow down a little bit, then I can do it.
No, that's true. I often need time to consider. So if it comes up in person, I probably do need to go away, let that ruminate for a while, and then come around. So yes, email, text gives me a little more time to like get past first reactions of, I don't have time for this, and then have a more appropriate response.
What do you think people find confusing about you?
So I think the thing that is most confusing to people is how fast I get things done. And that's been true forever. Like even when I was early adulthood and it was just housekeeping, just like, somebody blew up their microwave 20 times and no one would have ever been able to get it clean. But it turns out hot water, not just cleaner and a paper towel, like hot water will do a lot really fast. So I could get things done very quickly and people would think that was going to take a really long time. So they would be very confused. But the same has continued to be true in adult life. Somebody comes up with an idea and the next day I have like categories and spreadsheets and there's a system and a plan and let's do this thing. Or 2 weeks later, we conceived of an idea and 2 weeks later there was like multiple scripts and like an episode had been shot and we were ready to go. And so for some people, there's this confounding notion of like how. But for me, there's been a lot of gears that were turning already. So it was just all I needed was a little bit of permission. Yeah, just a little bit of permission to move forward with something that I was already excited about. So,
why do you think that's confusing and not just like, oh, wow, that's fantastic. I'm so glad you pulled that off.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people that they want way more time. Like a 6 is going to like consider why this would fail. And I'm considering...
Well, you haven't brought people along.
Why this?
So it's like,
succeed.
What? How'd you just? It's like you pre-bake. You just pull it out of the oven and it's done. Like, how what?
Yeah.
But if you didn't bring people along, then they don't know, or they may wonder if you really did all the steps for someone who's very rules oriented.
Did you think about it? Are you taking it seriously? I'm involved in this interfaith council right now, and the one action point for an entire 4 weeks was just to schedule a meeting, and I was like, and some people didn't make it to that step. They were like, I will be the first to confess. I did not. And, I had one meeting done and the next meeting scheduled for the next week.
And you're
like, ready to go.
What's your problem? It's done. And it's good.
It's just a meeting. Yeah.
Or in whatever you did, right? It's like you don't understand that and other people have to question it.
So is it a quality thing, you think, maybe? Or, is it good quality if it came up that quickly? Is it thought through fully?
Well, some people, the process is more important than the outcome. And at least for me, the outcome's way more important than the process. Mm. And so you're gonna get that confusion if you have two different people looking at that. It's like, what? Can't just be done? You didn't go through the process.
Yeah, I'm happy to make adjustments as we go. So let's try something.
Adaptable. And
we'll tweak as we go. We'll discover what's needed. But part of the discovering what's needed is the experience. And I think for some people, they just don't want all that experience. That feels like busy work or whatever. And for me, it feels relieving. It's scratching an itch that we are active and moving forward and doing something.
So people find confusing that you're just so good.
But then there is some level.
I'm teasing.
It's just energy. Like, my husband's a 7. I don't know. I could probably do 5 things in his 1. Like, I just feel like Flash.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Flash. But we are both superheroes in our own right. And he is a very positive person who can handle a lot of things. So we're very compatible in that sense. But I tend to move at lightning pace. So something that takes somebody else 40 hours, I can do in 20 and have a side project. And that's just not true for everybody. So.
Yeah. What else?
I had a couple of friends who said, and I've heard this as a theme throughout my life, that you seem so confident.
Yeah.
And you seem like you really have something figured out, but you'll be like brand new to it. But you just seem like you know it. And it might be just the speed at which I synthesize information. It might be the degree to which I can BS my way through things. But I do think that some people find that confidence confusing because they'll know, oh, but I know how long you've spent on this. Or I still remember being at high school graduation and having a friend see all of like the accolades hanging off of my, gown and all that and saying, like really questioning that I'd earned them. Because it was like, I did not see you study that much. You were like always doing other things. But I could always figure out what's the bare minimum I need to do to check all these boxes so that I can move forward. And I think that people find that confusing, that we can skip so many things and take so many shortcuts to get things done. What's interesting is the dynamic with my husband, who's an 8, is totally different than the dynamic I have with other people when it comes to what's confusing. So because he's higher energy than me, I think he actually finds it confusing that I can't get as much done as he can. Like, I remember there was a point in our marriage where he thought I was inefficient. He's like, why can't you just get things done faster? And I remember being like, anybody else would think that this is so fast, but not you. And so I think that's something that the Enneagram's really opened up for me, is this awareness of like, oh, that's where you're standing from here, but that's not necessarily, that's your perspective, your lens, right? We talk about lenses. That's your lens. When I asked him, he said, why don't you just know who you are? Because he can perceive with his BS meter. The identity piece for a 3, which is really the core deception, right? I don't know who I am. I'm self-deceived. And so the journey of the 3, the lifelong journey of the 3, is figuring out who I am. And so for an 8, that's like, what? Why don't you just know who you are? And so that's really confusing for him. The lack of confidence. So I've got all these other people in my life who see so much confidence, and then I have somebody who sees a total lack of confidence. And so that's the balance there. And then the one other thing I think that people do find confusing about me is for those that I'm really doing my work with, the randomness at which I will drop into my heart. Right? So, I mean, I'll just be watching a cartoon. I think I told Joel this story once, or TV, and there was an ad that came on. It's the Feed America ad with the children, and the mom can only feed them milk. Look, I'm going to start crying right now. I just, like, every time it comes on, I'm like, this is the worst thing in the whole world. How could any mother do this? Yeah. See, but becoming aware of that mechanism in me, right? That my healing comes from my heart. And the most powerful thing a 3 can do is connect with their heart. And so for the people I'm doing my work with, that's really surprising because I will be perfectly fine. And all of a sudden I'm weeping.
Yeah, task, and now you're connected.
Yeah, exactly. And she'll say, oh, there's the real Joanna. And so I think that that's confusing, is sort of experiencing that. And I think without the Enneagram, I think that I would be afraid that I was perceived as immature or weak or not to be trusted, maybe, that my emotions aren't safe. So I think that's given me tools to feel like I'm safe.
And that's your heart. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you said your friend said, well, there's the real you. Why is that the real you?
Because... So this is me cheating to answer, but I know that the real me will show up looking like a really healthy 6. And so when I show up healthy in that dynamic move, I am caring about other people. I don't care as much that people see my weakness. So when I drop into my heart, and that's the real Joanna, it means I've dropped down that armor that says I can't look weak. I need to perform, and you need to see me have it all under control. So I've dropped that piece down. And so I'm willing to then connect with somebody else. And then they're willing to trust me to help lift them up to that place, right? Because without that, they just see this is a hardcore performer getting things done, and they just want me to get things done alongside them. But when I'm able to show I do not have it together, And these are my wounds. This is my pain. When they can see that, because we're human, we're all human, and threes just want to reject their humanity. Threes want to take their humanity and stuff it under the sheets, make the bed up really nice, and say, like, this is who I am. But we're all human. And so our power is connecting with our humanity and our brokenness. And then other people, I think, can be in real, authentic relationship with us.
So I'm relating with that. And maybe it's the older I get, I'm feeling like, I am super slow these days. I feel like hyper slow. Like it kills me how slow I am.
Yeah. Become aware. I feel slow.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a very quick thinker. Like I capture ideas really quickly and I can get to the heart of something very quickly. But in terms of executing, I feel like right now, in this season, I am super slow, or it feels that way to me. So what I wrote down was, what's confusing is, I challenge everything, and words and nuance are really important to me. And I think it gets to that honesty piece, or where I could feel this feels true to me, kind of a thing. And I will often say that in conversation with people now. This word doesn't quite cover it. What do you mean by this? And then and when I'm studying the Bible, I drill down on the etymology of words, back to the original Greek and Hebrew. I'm finding a lot of peace and comfort in that, and then the etymology all the way back. And, here's what it means from an emotional perspective. I get it. Okay. And all the layers that we put on top of it, particularly with English as being outcome oriented, it doesn't feel true or authentic. I got to feel it. So I think people find that confusing.
Naming things is really important for yours.
Yeah. I mean, on the one hand, labels, well, that's the first thing I said to you was like labels, are not helpful. But then to your context of how you're using the word, it's super important because then it helps, it becomes foundational for other ideas on top of it. Yeah.
How is your slowness confusing to other people?
There's this joke that my little sister and I have, this old Bob Newhart show where his wife, they're planning on some project and his wife comes back and she's like, yeah, I did this, that, and the other thing. I went over here, did that and the other thing. And she said, what did you do? She says, you didn't do anything, did you? And he says, no. He says, I ate an orange. And that's become this kind of buzzword in my life right now is, wait, no, I ate an orange. So I don't... Yeah, I just think like the woman that I'm working with, she'll say, oh, no, like you came up with this emotional language, because we're doing a lot of marketing right now. Oh. So it's a lot of language stuff. So, I'll be like, wow, you did all that stuff. That's amazing. All I did was this one thing. And she's like, yeah, but, like you massaged, like you brought an emotional context to it. You brought an authenticity to it, it feels like. So, yeah.
Because there's modes. I've recently thought, like, I have my creator mode, my research mode, my motivational speaker mode, my life coaching mode, right? There's modes. So
yeah, that's and that speaks to the very much to the adaptability of the three. But to what's going on with where you are is as a three that every three is very different. Your expression of your three is going to be different than the expression of other threes, and I think that's one of the things that we've really emphasized on our panel's podcast is to not try to seek uniformity or seek agreement on everything, but actually the unique expression of your type, because there's such a variety of threes out there, depending upon your wing type, whether you're a 3 with a 4 wing or a 3 with a 2 wing, and your subtype. Those all add to that, not to mention your environment, how you grew up, your gender, cultural overlays, so much to it. But what you're talking about there is not unusual. There are other threes I've spoken to who struggle with getting into motion, getting into gear sometimes because of where they're at in their particular, in their lives. But the question that Joanna asked, I think, is really a good one, in that your perception of your own slowness, I don't know of many threes that feel like it's quite fast enough for them. I'm talking to an entrepreneur right now who's trying to start this big business, and it's never moving quite fast enough for her, So there's that, and then there's also, do others perceive you as being slow? And that may not be the case, but in any event, this is where you're at in your own journey, and so just embracing that this is who you are and this is where you're at. And
thanks for that word of affirmation, Joel.
Yes.
Paul, one thing that came to my mind too is that as far as the 3 and having to get that right word, I really identified with that. You know what's right. You know what complete is. You know what done is, right? And when folks aren't there, as far as the achiever goes or the performer, you're going to push to get it right, even if it takes longer. And so why are you going through all the senses of this thing? Because I know it's not the best way to characterize it. There's a way that if you put this, it's going to persuade people and get people there and so forth. So that's just something that came to my mind that connects with the 3, but also could, from a time standpoint, take longer to get to the right thing, but you're there when you're there.
Mm-hmm. And also a little awareness around shortcuts. Because I know that in my work life, I've become aware that sometimes shortcuts, my tendency to go automatically to shortcuts, to move quickly on something doesn't create the best work. And there's some tasks that really require my best work. And so it takes intentionality for me to slow down and say, this kind of work is something I probably shouldn't shortcut. So what do I need to do to stretch this out and give this what it's due? Because I'll automatically just move on and maybe not give it what it's due. I recently had a big task for a weekend retreat. And in the past, I've sort of shown up with the talks I was doing and my tasks and kind of just done it, because most people will perceive, oh, wow, you sounded so great. And but I really kind of threw it together at the last minute. But I wanted to honor the work all the other women were doing to put this together. And I wanted to honor that space and what it was going to take to bring my best work. And so I realized that's going to take more intentionality than I naturally want to give this. And so it might also be that you've reached a point in your professional life where you've noticed where you need to do that. And so but that feels really slow to me. I definitely become aware of, I try to be present with my kids a lot more because I'm home with them and I'm homeschooling and we try and go out in nature and I hate it because I can't do anything out in nature. I lost my ear pods. I had ear pods and I could listen to podcasts while they were frolicking. And I lost them. And so we were waiting for the new ones to come out so that I could inherit my husband's and he could get the new ones because he always gets the new technology in our house. Oh, trust me. He took them to the hot tub last night and I said, we're at a hotel locally and he took them and I said, you be good to those. Those are mine now. Don't drop those in the hot tub.
So you can multitask with your kids in nature.
Right. But trying to slow down and say, it's okay that I don't have it. I start shaking. I'm like, isn't there something I can get done? Is there a problem I can solve? Should I plan dinner for the week in my head while I sit here? I mean, I will literally go through how many things can I, and it's why centering prayer is so good for 3s. I mean, it's like, I'm going to make myself slow down right now.
Good for you.
Yeah. Contemplative practices have helped a lot because I became very good at making to-do lists, and then I started feeling like I could accomplish 20 things, and then I thought, I don't know what else to put on the to-do list, and then I thought maybe I'm missing something because I can't think of anything to do right now, and then we have a contemplative class that was like built into my life, and I was able to sit and say like, what are my values? What are my goals? What's happening right now that relates to those things? And then go, no, it's okay. Things are happening. I just wasn't really busy for 20 minutes, right? It was, but yes, contemplative practices very much help me feel like I'm not gonna
do it. I tried.
It does take time, right? Because the head is always
such
spinning.
a waste of time. I just lost 20 minutes.
But I would add to what Christina said is if you could make it a goal. So I am in a class. So the class has goals. I'm going to the class, and when I go to the class, we sit there in silence. So I feel like I'm achieving something by showing up at the class. So it kind of checks those boxes for me so that then I can try.
I love these hacks.
What's been happening to me? Oh, so awesome.
Well, I was going to say, it's helpful for me to actually show up to meetings on time because I like working right up and then going to the meeting just a few minutes late because then it's going already and I'm not wasting any time. But contemplation actually helps me get to the place of arriving on time because I could actually, I get there early, I could have 5 minutes of contemplation and it could be okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, well, no, what's happened to me is I just wake up early and I kind of feel like this is God doing this to me. And then like, I have found time. I'm going to spend time in the Bible, and guess what? It changes everything and so forth. So it's like that's the I've been hacked type thing. And it's just like, hey, I'm going to actually just savor this time because I could spend it doing lots of different things. But first, I'm going to choose this first. So it's also, I think, when you get older, you need less sleep or something. And just all of a sudden, boink, I'm up. But as far as like what others find confusing about me, I asked my wife, and the number one thing that she said was, I can invent amazing things, but I cannot match my clothes.
Can't be bothered.
So I can do all these different things, but not that. I guess the other thing that's really confusing is my wife said I can feel like two different people. There's something I finally understood. So I'll get something I want to do, and everything's clicked. I got my plan, and then the motivation's there, and all the flow's there. I mean, it could be anything. It could just be like fixing a light bulb or something. And I'm going out of the room. My head's already like 5 steps ahead of myself, and so forth. It's going to happen. It's going to be done. And then someone just says, "Hey, how about this random news thing?" And I will blow up because you just messed up my plan. I didn't realize that because I was just get disproportionately angry at someone having a conversation with me because I'm already into the plan and it was now that needed to happen and stuff. I didn't realize that. So that definitely leads to this two different people thing. And then the other thing is that I will go out of my way to help others and do all these types of things, but then the people that are close to me don't quite get the white glove treatment on me being so helpful and so forth. So that's one of the things.
My 12-year-old said exactly that same thing. I asked her what was confusing about me, and she said, when I come home from school and I don't know if you're going to be angry or if you're going to be chill. And so it's totally when I'm in task mode, when I'm just in that performer false self. If my kids bump into that performer false self, they get angry mom.
Yes. Yes.
And so that awareness of tasks versus relating, my new mantra about my children is they're not a problem, they're a person. Because I find myself continually trying to solve them as problems instead of relating to them as people.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that is a great one.
That's a very, very good one.
I can see putting that up around the house.
So there's the human aspect of family, right? And then there's there's things you need to accomplish in order to grow up. So it's
Dinner
great.
has to get on the table.
Yeah. It's great to be okay, have you mastered addition? Have you mastered, multiplication? But I had a really weird moment. It was last Friday, and one of our kids is lactose intolerant, but insists on trying anyways, right? And so she was having some constipation issues, and I had so many meetings that it's Friday night and it's bedtime and I'm still trying to get stuff ready for the weekend. And she was asking where the medicine was for constipation, but first she pulled out gas medicine, and I was I literally got up from the table and said, I do not have time to deal with your chronic constipation right now. This is the weirdest conversation. These are her needs. Now she's going to feel like she can't talk to me about being sick. Yeah. But there's this thing that just needs to get done. And so, I'm getting it, but clearly I'm angry, and that cannot be a great space for her. So, yeah.
Even how you process that is really interesting. That's familiar, It's kind of you're breaking up my, who stole my cheese, if you read that book, and then recognizing, oh, wait a minute. Yeah.
That's not a very human thing to do to someone.
Yeah, that's so awesome. You guys are really demonstrating this sort of awareness, self-awareness. That's so important, and you're seeing these things in you. There's a related question, but it is different in its nuance, and that is about being misunderstood. In what ways do you feel misunderstood? And the confusion that one is about how do other people see you, and the confusion that you might create there. But this issue of being misunderstood is, here is what I'm trying to do or present, and I feel like others don't see that. I don't see this part of me or understand me fully.
Well, I don't know, the thing that comes to mind for me is this place that I'm in right now of pursuing this entrepreneurial thing that's pressing the limits of things. I don't feel understood in my hope for this. Like I have this vision of, how it could be really awesome for, the different groups that are part of it, immigrant moms, and, how it's going to help gather people together and all these different pieces. And meanwhile, I'm taking huge financial risks. I'm pressing up against these, regulatory things. It just all feels, so people are like, what? Like, why are you doing this? Like, how are you going to do this? Which makes them doubters, I guess.
What do they not understand about you?
Like, why would you do this? Like, this is crazy. Like, why would you make these choices? And I'm like, I make these choices because I want to work. I want to have purpose. I want to work on a big idea, and it's more important to me. That is more important to me than, wealth and, even financial stability, and, these other things. Yeah. So I think that's really confusing for people.
You'd said, dream about the future with me.
Yeah.
And if they're not doing that, then you're not really understanding the core me or where I'm going.
So that's your immediate context. Do you have over your lifetime, where do you feel like the most consistently misunderstood?
Well, I mean, actually, that feels pretty consistent. This idea of crossing over the creek, and then I'm confused. I'm like, well, I'm just following what I want. I'm just doing what I want to do. Like it's in front of me to do, and it's really fun, and I'm just doing it. And then, started with my father, but, like just other people. It could look like anger. It could look like fear. Like people will have this, like I could see this look of fear on their face when I, talk to them. Does that make sense? Does that feel like
so? Is there an
attribution
that is being put onto you that you feel does not reflect who you really are?
Yeah, like crazy. I think that's the attribution. Nutto. Or just, like in my worst moments, I'll be thinking, like, am I disconnected from reality? Like, am I, just, not self-aware, of what's going on around me kind of a thing? Yeah, I think that's the attribution, which makes me feel really unsafe,
One of the couple of things I put down was that if you think about other numbers, for example, there's a lot, a need for love or a need for affirmation, these kind of core needs that all these numbers have. We think of those as good and holy desires, right? Yeah, we have a need for self-worth. We have a need for love. We have a need for connection. 3s have a need to achieve, to get things done. And I think that's a good and holy desire. And work precedes the fall, right? God gave work before the fall. God thinks work is good. He thinks getting things done is good. But I think that a lot of people in our culture, even though I hear a lot of America is a 3 culture. I actually think Brazil is a 3 culture. I think America kind of has these other nuances going on. But I think that there's a lot of that American culture that doesn't understand, especially within the church, because we want to say that you're getting your worth from the wrong things. And I think it's different to get your identity from your work. What we're doing is we're getting kind of this core self need to achieve, need to see things move forward, need to see things get done. That is a core human need that 3s are exemplifying. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. They don't have a core need necessarily to achieve, but we reflect that need in all of humanity. I think all humans do, and 3s reflect that the greatest. And so what I'm hearing a little bit from you, and I don't want to put words in your mouth at all, but is that you're driving after this need to achieve. You want to see things change. You want to see things be better. I do think a lot of 3s have a drive towards justice. I think that as they move towards 6 and they're caring about other people, they can become very tender and want to see that change for the greater good. Maybe not on a personal level. They're often looking more at scale. But yeah, I think that is a way that we're misunderstood, is that achievement is a good and holy desire.
I think that happiness factor aspect of it, so it can come off as if you never have any other emotions. And I have a presenting self and then an under self, right? And I'll save, like presenting self always comes first. If you say, how are you? Well, even if you just say hello, right? I was an opera singer before all of this, so I might go like, hello, and it's all high and it's up. But I could have been like really upset just a second ago, but now it's time for this phone call.
So you're going to that mode.
Yeah, so I'm going to switch. And I've had people ask, like, are you just always cheery all the time? And I'm thinking, I'm not even cheery right now. That's just like the standard response to hello or how are you? Good, because that's a standard response. And I'm aware that there are other people that can't live with that like standard response. But I'm good with it because it gets us to where we need to go in this meeting and we need to move forward. And maybe somebody at some time can deal with this other part of me. But right now we're doing this. And I would never want to even burden you with all the stuff that I'm thinking about. In the interest of time, let's like get to the stuff we're doing right now. And I'll deal with that when it blows up unexpectedly, watching a cartoon, So, but like just last night, my husband and I are part of this foster adopt groups. It's like a couple of families, and we're reading this book together. And some of it's just like informational, and some of it's real life stories. And this one story was about a child who had grown up in a home where they were accepting foster children into their home. And she's talking about the experience. And I'm just like, I cannot get through the words. I'm like totally crying. And then I have to like snap out of it, right? Because we need to achieve finishing the chapter. So I think there is...
Put that in a box. We'll put that on the shelf.
That is really sad. That goes here. So I think there can be the sense that maybe there is no deeper emotion. And there is, but I like to explore it like on my own, in the car, when I'm driving. It's very hard for me to process with other people unless they ask the right question. So what's going on, you'll get surface. I'll tell you the things that are milestones, etc. What do you need prayer for? Or what feels difficult? Or that kind of a question. Then you'll get a little bit more honest of a response. But usually that's like the last thing that people ask. So... it'll be the last 2 minutes. There won't be enough time. So you'll just get like a snippet of it. So there's that. I think attached to that is because it all seems all happy on the outside, I can feel easily abandoned or hurt that because I won't necessarily share that. Man, it was really important to me that you would have shown up or that you would have seen that through with me and not walked away. So I won't necessarily share. And all that just sits on the inside, which can come to a head then all of a sudden. And it's like a total shock to somebody else. But
I've heard that from a lot of threes say that it surprises them, but it surprises other people too, just how deeply emotional many of you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Moving right along.
Indeed. So
next question. So
you had a number of things. So feeling misunderstood. So I've had people, I think about the names I've been called. All right. So in some projects, when I was in a startup and stuff, the name that I heard was Pollyanna. Right. And that's always seeing the good, totally ignoring what is and so forth. And that's why I've adapted also be super skeptical as well. But so that's, are you always this way? Are you always happy? Are you always no, I'm thinking about all sorts of different things. But I'm really driven to go where you can. And then others times it's been people feel like they have to clean up behind me. Right. So if the people who are very process oriented, well, you didn't do this step and this step and this step, but it's done. Really? Do we have problems? And so forth. So I don't know if that's a misunderstood or a way you kind of conflict with people. One thing that I feel like I get misunderstood, words are really important to me. So getting the right words and knowing people understand my meaning of the word, and then it can be confusing because I'm trying to use all these different words and sometimes they're contradicting each other and so forth. So I actually have this weird thing where I do active listening to make sure you know what I thought you know and so forth. At the end of meetings especially or any type of agreement, I'm going to say, so what I'm going to do is this. And so if someone else just goes and gives me a nonverbal nod or whatever, I'll think they didn't understand what I said. So I repeat myself 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So I expect this active listening. I don't even know if that fits into this thing. It's just a weird thing that I've always done. because I expect to hear exactly what this person's going to do, and I don't have that commitment, and it's not clear, and don't have something we can bank on. I'm going to think they didn't get it.
So you're saying you do that in order to avoid being misunderstood?
Yeah, I do it to be, yes. But a lot of people won't understand why I'm doing that. Like, why are you repeating this the third time?
I heard you.
We had an agreement, yeah. It's like they did the one nod, and that was enough. But I didn't know that they knew, and I didn't know we had the commitment. It's going to work. Because the plan's got to work. It can't be, we get all at the party and stuff. You were supposed to bring potato salad, and you're supposed to bring that. I thought we had this. It's like, that bugs me when we could have just had a few other communication acts and been 100% sure. And also, I don't want to have to follow up because that's painful for me. Just get it right.
No, I just wanted to quickly share that when Andy and I, my husband, were talking about this, he said, why is it that you all say this, you did this thing wrong, but you're not owning it. You're not saying it, but it's obvious. I can see it. Other people can see it, but you're not willing to say, like, yeah, I did this thing. Why can't you just do that? And so I said, because I would have to drop into my heart and connect with my shame to own that I did something. And he goes, I don't do that at all. You just own it.
Yeah.
There's no heart connection to own stuff.
Fascinating.
So for him,
Is that possible?
yeah, right? So for him, there was no connection with his heart at all to say, yeah, I did this thing wrong.
No, shame
Just a
is
fact.
right there.
No.
Oh, yeah.
But the second that I need to say, I did this thing wrong, it's like,
Oh, the world.
I'm wrong. Right? And one of the things I love from the first 3 panel was the discussion about micro shame. I resonated so much with that comment that the 3s don't experience this like grand shame of this like big thing that happened this one time. So I carry all this shame with me. I experience shame like in these tiny little pinpricks all day long. And so I'm always kind of carrying all these little pinpricks from it all day long. And so when you want me to do that, I'm not just dropping into like this one thing. I'm dropping into the 100 pinpricks from the last several hours of all the little things that I didn't do right. And so I have to feel all of that when I tell you, yeah, I almost burned the house down because I left the pot on and the burner under it, and that was hard. Like that was yesterday, I think. And I said, and then of course he goes, you realize you wouldn't actually have burned the house down because the pot was, just going to keep being hot. And there was nothing that was going to catch fire. There's nothing flammable near it. But just the act of needing to bring that forward was like, oh, he's going to see the pot. He's going to want to know what happened and why there's a giant black layer on the middle of the pot. So I should just go ahead and tell him I almost burned the house down. But that's a perfect example, too, of how a lot of times the thing I make of it is so much bigger than once it's uncovered, once it's out there. It's like, oh, it's actually a lot smaller than I thought it was. And now it's manageable. And now we can both look at it and talk about it. But man, yeah, dropping into my heart to have to own shame does not happen easily.
Those are really good points. That dropping into the heart there. But also the self-criticism. Man, I do that constantly. I actually will audibly say, oh, man, shoot. And when I'm walking into work all the time, like, I don't even know what's going through my head, but I'm having these things where I'm actually upset about mistakes. Like one time I was up at giving a presentation and I have a hard time memorizing the ranks of military officials. So I called a major lieutenant or whatever. It's a lieutenant something, a lieutenant colonel. Okay. I called the lieutenant colonel. I'm up there giving a presentation, lieutenant several times, and there's this audible gasp and stuff. So I will, to this day, I mean, that had to be 15 years ago. I will still be like, oh, man. Jeez, my God, what I mean, to this day, it's gone, it's done. But like, they kept gasping. I'm like, what's that? And then someone finally said, no, lieutenant. It's not like you say doctor. You don't leave off the first part. Anyway, so I just beat myself up constantly for these small little things.
Me too. Wow,
and certainly getting down into the shame and so forth, getting to the heart and so forth. That, like, yeah, I scratched the car. No, I don't want to deal with that. No. Because I wasn't thinking, because my mind was elsewhere. I bumped into something.
Yeah. So the final question is, how do your loved ones get to know you?
I feel like the first answer is slowly, just on the table. It is a very long process. So, I led with this earlier, but you really have to come back multiple times. And I feel like I'm just a dense rock a little bit. Like, it's not until you've invited me to a concert for your birthday and you only had one other ticket so you could only invite me, or until you came and picked me up at midnight because I was homesick or whatever. It's not until the craziest thing has happened that I'll realize we're friends. So there's this shared experiences thing where if we're around each other, it is actually very important to me that people can share experiences with me, just time together. But I feel like sometimes we talk about either shoulder to shoulder or face to face, and I feel like I need shoulder to shoulder and face to face. We need to do things together, and we need time to talk and eat together, sacrifice together. So.
Yeah, I'll just mine tie into that very well. Yeah, sharing a task and complete it. And, let's just get it done and so forth. And also, we have to be compatible for how we do it. Because if you're just dreaming about, and there's this other step we can do. I'm like, but that's not achievable now or possibly ever. So let's not talk about that if this person keeps going. No, it has to be something where we can complete all the planks and get it together. But yeah, the best way to get to know me is to send off for the manual, have it delivered, and then you read that, and we'll figure that out. But yeah, I think one of the things that's been brought up several times, kind of around the deception, is I might not share something with you, especially if I'm worried about upsetting you or disappointing you and so forth. So you kind of have to know that it's more my fear. It's not you, it's me. But I'm not going to necessarily share as much as I should. And I thought I would do, but I realize I don't. I try to. And then join in and play. Definitely.
So there's some patients, your family, your friends, those who love you, need to have, and also maybe some helping you to draw you out, maybe some questions.
100% patience, but also the
calling you out. Yeah.
It's not a problem. You backed into this. We got a scratch. It's a scratch. I'd rather have a relationship with you over that shame you're feeling of the scratch. It's like, okay, I'll walk it through like you're a 3-year-old and it will be good, actually. And I'll be like, oh, thank you. Yeah. But yet I can solve all these complex problems, but you need to really get down to the basics when it comes to the emotional level.
Got it. That's good.
I find that somebody needs to be willing to get to know all of the me's.
All of the yous.
All the modes, or what do we call it?
Sometimes it kind of going back to the things that catch other people by surprise. It can surprise other people the way that 3s can shapeshift. And it can some 3s, I can feel misunderstood when somebody thinks that's me being fake instead of me being loving, because I think that I'm doing it so that people feel welcome. I think of it as hospitality, and other people think of it as being fake. So if they're willing to press in to get to know those different me's, to understand my motivations for why they're showing up, that's a big one. I think I put down when the task is to connect. So
it's on your to-do list.
So I'm part of this ministry where there's an experiential weekend, and it's all women or all men, and they come to experience deeper levels of emotional health and healing. And I love it partially because the task is to connect. And so the thing we're trying to do is to do our work, to go deeper, to connect with other women, and so I can thrive in that environment because that is the goal. So if I am dropping into my heart, if I'm connecting, if I'm doing my own work, then I'm doing the thing. And so that's actually, and then I asked my husband, how do you get to know me? And he said, we spend time together. It's like, isn't that the answer for everyone? But what I realized when he said that, he was specifically mentioning a time we had in the fall, which was our first time without our kids overnight for like 4 days. And I brought books. I have this chronic problem where every airplane I've ever gone on, I've brought a backpack with like 10 things to do. Nice. Like, what if I finish that book? What if I don't want to read that kind of book and I want to read a different kind of book? So like I have all of these options. And so when I'm in a setting where the goal is to not do those things, like, so during that week, the goal was to just go deeper together. The goal was just to spend time on our relationship. And so I did, because that's what we were doing. And so I've now learned if I can be more intentional and strategic around creating those spaces where this is what I'm doing right now. And I have to do that especially with my kids, because most kids won't just be aggressive to you about getting what they need from you. And so I need to be able to create those spaces that say, okay, now is the time where we're just going to go deeper. And so there's no other task that we're doing right now than having ice cream. That's just what we're going to do. And so a great thing I started doing actually was on Mondays. So my 12-year-old, we have 50-50 custody with her. And so when she's transitioning back from her dad's house, I was experiencing a lot of like disjunct, trying to get back into life. And so we have tea time. So we clear off the table and we put a tablecloth down and we pull out this book of poetry and there's something sweet. And I boil the kettle and the little kids like sparkling water. They think that's just like, the bee's knees. So they have sparkling water. And that is hard for me to say there's nothing else I'm trying to do right now. I keep pulling out my phone to take pictures of how cute they are all sitting there. And I'm like, that's not what I'm doing. Put the phone down. Put the phone down. But that's hard, but it's good. It's like, okay, the goal right now is to relate. The goal right now is for them to get to know me and me to get to know them and to go deeper. And so, but I think that as a 3, like you say, it first took the intentionality of other people because I was not awake to them. I was not awake to the people who were trying to connect with me for decades of my life. It took me awakening to these people that were trying to love on me to say, oh, we're doing friendship. That's what we're doing. Okay, what are the rules of this game?
From my perspective, I was relating to most of what you guys were saying, to this pursuit of purpose and mission, particularly if you join me on my mission. That feels really good.
Yes.
And then engage. I wrote, engage with me to understand me, and then really spend time with me. I'm very spontaneous. Like I don't make plans a month ahead or even a week ahead. So if you're willing to, head off and do something with me when I'm ready to do that, that starts to build, relationship. I start to have trust. Those are the...
Well, fantastic. Thank you guys so much. The level of awareness here, transparency, and truth, it was outstanding. So thank you guys so much.
This is fun.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so that was a fabulous group of 3s talking to us. All 4 of them were just so wonderful. But we did say at the end of these episodes, we wanted to get into some coaching tips. So coaching tips, both for being in relationship with a type 3 and coaching tips for the type 3.
Yeah. Type 3s tend towards being fix-it people. They're not alone in that. There's other Enneagram types that do as well. What the 3 does is to be that positive energy in relationships and to come up with solutions and to quickly move towards that as a way to achieve, as a way to continue to be seen by the world as successful. And so how it works itself out in relationship is sometimes it can be that they move so quickly, get right to the solution, get right to achieving, that people don't really feel connected at a deeper level to 3s. So in work relationships, it's great because 3s will get things done and it moves quickly that way. But if you're seeking for something more from the 3, it's going to be tricky, and that's something to be aware of. So for the 3, it's to slow down enough that you become aware of other people and not just for how they see you, but to really tune into their world, their needs, and to be present without creating an immediate solution, flipping it right to, well, here's how we can fix it, and here's how I can get back to achieving. Here's how I can get back to being a fantastic mom, a fantastic dad, a fantastic
back to you
president.
seeing me as
that way. Exactly.
Yes,
yeah. That's the pattern. And so each one of us has a pattern. We become aware of that. You can intercept that and choose a different path. It's not easy, but that's one of the things that as threes do that, they start to notice something significant happen, and that is their relationships improve. People start to feel seen by them and loved by them more than just in the way that threes love naturally, which is providing solutions, which is a fantastic thing. And of course, that's a tremendous gift to people that are loved by the three. And wow, what a gift that is. If you're in a relationship with a three, you know that. You know what that's like. But at a deeper level, more at that relational level, I think that's a key thing for threes. I think for threes also to see people as people and not necessarily as another checklist item. Well, I did relationship today. I did that. That helps the three to kind of get out of that whole, like, how many things did I get done today? How many things that, I achieved? To get out of that space for a period of time, which is I'm with this person. That's it. It's just being with them. For the three, part of the personal growth to get to, better relationships is to pay attention to your own heart. Because you're aware of what's going on in the world around you. You're aware of what people are expecting or what people will like. And so you perform accordingly. Instead, this is really about you becoming aware of your own emotional space. How do you feel? What's going on with you? And so that way you can actually speak from that center, from that place, and people can, love you. People can actually be in relationship with you. I think that's very important for threes. And that little pause between the stimulus and response that they get, which is the world would see me as successful if these people have a need, so I immediately get into action and start fixing those things for them, is you stop, and that's just for 60 seconds. What do I feel? Is this mine to do, really? And just that little pause causes you to begin to change because you become aware of how many little hits you can get during the day, that drug of approval. And that can take you into just scattering all your energy into a ton of relationships. And that keeps you from really finding out what your truth is and what you're to be about doing and who are the really important people in your life that matter. So that's important.
Yeah. So coaching tip to the type 3 about how they can have better relationships with the people around them.
Well, so it's spending time, as I said, spending time that feels wasteful, quite frankly, and doing so present to what's going on with you. This is an act of your own growth. Like being in relationship with people is not just I have to do it because I have to do it, but it's actually because if I do it, I personally will transform and become more successful, not less successful. And this is really what I love about the Enneagram is actually the very thing that you're trying to do, which is to be successful as a 3, to achieve as a 3. Becomes even more of that when you go about it in this counterintuitive way, which is wasting time with people actually causes you to become more aware of yourself and other people, thus enabling you to become more intuitive, smarter in actually how to interact with people, and thus more successful. So it really aims you in the right direction. So relationships are about just that, getting to know people and being with people, not accomplishing something or providing an immediate solution to them. And so slowing down that pattern, that immediate, like, I've got a solution for that. I know what to do. Here's what, if I serve you in this way, you'll be happy, you'll like me. And I think that's a key thing for 3s.
I think another key thing for 3s is if you want to get better at your relationships, threes, get really good at asking questions and then being present to the answer that people give you. If you can go into that space of being like, I want to ask more about that from you. Tell me more about your experience in that. That's going to pull you out of some of the patterns that can pull you in as far as like, how am I appearing to you? And you're going to come off great. Like when people feel like you're curious about them, you're going to come off great. But really leaning into that space. And I'm lucky enough to know some really healthy threes. And when they're in sometimes their best space, when they're actually able to push forward, is when they really come into that skill of asking great questions. Another thing that I've noticed with some of the type threes that I know who are healthiest is they intentionally take time to do something they love in nature. So like one of them is a fabulous rock climber. One of them loves to always take time and go off alone in a river and go fly fishing, because solitude is sometimes very difficult. But they take this time to go in nature, and in that space, they're surrounded by beauty, and so there's the almost give themselves permission to look at some things that they might otherwise fear.
Yeah, the thing too is you're not going to get it right. You're gonna. Every one of us, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we're all going to get it wrong. We're always going to. Every day, every week, we're going to make the mistakes. We're going to go back to our, compulsions, our impulses. So here's what I say for grace, because in the process of transformation, you need a whole lot of freedom to not get it right. One of the things I've told other threes that are my clients is go ahead and ask for what it is you want, because you're gonna try to get it anyways. You're gonna try to get the approval. You're gonna try to get the feedback, the positive feedback, and if you're not getting it, you start to feel really anxious, troubled internally. You start to feel some emotions you typically don't feel. Instead, just go ahead and ask, how am I doing? I need your feedback. And find ways of doing it with safe people, obviously. You can't do that with everybody, but you can find some safe people and ask them. You can also find ways that are safe to ask people that you ordinarily wouldn't, like a boss. So I'd love to get your feedback on how I'm doing, and be aware that you might have a bottomless tank for approval, for the need for approval. So just be aware of that. But being able to say that and just ask for that also helps you to show yourself grace and recognize I'm still in process. I know what I'm doing, but I need to do that. As a 7, I've learned to do that through my 7.
Yeah, for you. Yeah.
And it's been helpful to me, because the moment I just say it, the energy just dissipates. It's not caught up in my system striving for something. I just out it. I get it out, say it, and then it's gone. So I've asked Challenge Threes to do that. And so that's another, I think, helpful tip for threes.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are in relationship with threes, again, partners, friends, lovers, at work, whatever the situation is, what best helps threes is to pay attention to how many times you let them know, or how frequently or infrequently you give them feedback. It is so important to threes, even negative feedback. If it's specific, if it's concrete, if it's practical, threes appreciate it. Why? Because it helps them to get back to doing what they do really well, which is to create pathways towards success. Be sure, though, to also give them the positive feedback. Now, this may feel to you icky if you're not that kind of a person, but this is the act of showing grace while we're all in the process of trying to grow. It's a gift of grace to one another. And so to be able to give them the positive feedback is very helpful to them. I think that's probably the most important thing you can do in a relationship with a 3.
So thank you so much for listening. Leaving us a review on iTunes or sharing an episode with a friend is the best way to support us. And if you'd like to go deeper in your experience, you can reach out to us at the website, theartofgrowth.org to find out what would be helpful to you. And if you are a company in Massachusetts, we have state-funded trainings that you can do, and the state will pay for it. So that's an amazing thing. Please reach out to us if you want to learn more. And if you are an industrious person who has a way to help bring us into an organization anywhere in the world to help do trainings, reach out to us at theartofgrowth.org and talk to us about that for some profit-sharing opportunities. But for now, my friends, enjoy the connections around you. And to our threes out there, receive. And look at ways you can receive. Because the connection of relationship is not about earning, but an exchange of love and respect. Grace and growth, my friends. Have a good week.